Nobody is going to warn you when the shelves go empty, but after 12 years of quietly preparing, I can tell you exactly which foods disappear first, and more importantly, which 11 foods are always still sitting there, untouched, every single time. Here's what I have noticed about the prepping world. Everybody reads the same articles, follows the same advice, and buys the same supplies. Rice, beans, freeze-dried meal packets. And look, those are fine starting points, but there is a massive blind spot in how most preppers think, and it is costing them. When a real disruption hits, the foods everyone stockpiles are the exact foods that vanish from store shelves within hours. I have watched it happen firsthand. Early in the last major supply chain breakdown, I drove past 3 different grocery stores. The rice aisle, cleaned out by 10 in the morning. Canned beans, gone before lunch. But every single food I'm about to share with you, fully stocked. Nobody was reaching for them. That is not an accident. That is an opportunity. So today, I'm going to walk you through 11 foods that most preppers completely overlook. These are things I personally keep in my own stockpile, not because I read them in some blog post, but because I tested them, researched them, and in some cases, lived on them. And when I get to number 7, pay close attention because it's sitting at your local Asian grocery store right now for under $3, while people spend $30 on far weaker alternatives. And number 4, it has been used by human civilizations for thousands of years, costs almost nothing, and will outlast you and me both. Stay with me, because this list is going to change how you think about food storage entirely. Food number 1, bouillon cubes. I know what you're thinking. Bouillon cubes? That's the big secret? Hear me out, because this one earns its place at the top of the list in a way most people never consider. Last year, I had a long conversation with someone who had spent 2 decades managing food distribution for a large company. He told me something that stuck with me. During the supply disruptions of 2024, bouillon cubes saw virtually zero shortage, not a dip, not a hiccup. While everything around them was being swept off shelves, bouillon just sat there. Why? Because most people do not think of it as a survival food, and that's exactly what makes it so valuable. Think about what 1 cube actually delivers. It contains the same flavor and mineral content of 2 full cups of broth, but it takes up almost no space and weighs almost nothing. I have cubes in my pantry right now that are 3 years old and still taste exactly as they should. Here's the reality of surviving on stored food for an extended stretch. The thing that breaks people down fastest is not hunger, it's monotony. Eating plain rice and plain beans day after day, week after week, destroys morale faster than almost anything else. But drop 1 bouillon cube into that pot of rice while it cooks, and the entire experience changes. It smells different. It tastes like something. Your family actually wants to eat it. I keep roughly 500 cubes in my stockpile. The total cost was under $30. That's 500 meals transformed from something people endure into something they genuinely want. Compare that math to freeze-dried meal packets at $15 each. The value is not even close. Here's how I store them. Take them out of the cardboard packaging and transfer them into mason jars with a silica gel packet dropped in for moisture control. Those silica packets are free. Just save them from shoeboxes and supplement bottles. Stored this way, bouillon cubes will outlast your rice supply by a significant margin. But here's what truly sets this food apart from a survival standpoint. This is not just about flavor. The concentrated sodium and trace minerals in bouillon cubes function as basic electrolyte replacement. In a hot environment, during physical labor, or if someone is recovering from illness, electrolyte loss becomes a real medical concern. The military understood this long ago, which is why bouillon has appeared in field rations for generations. Nobody fights over bouillon during a shortage. That's precisely why it belongs in your stockpile. Food number 2, nutritional yeast. Before you scroll past this one, give me 60 seconds. I know it sounds like something from a health food store you've never been to, but nutritional yeast has quietly become one of the most useful things in my entire pantry, and it took a neighbor of mine to open my eyes to it. She had switched to a plant-based diet and kept telling me I had to try this stuff. I finally put some on popcorn one evening, and I was immediately surprised. It has a deep, savory, almost cheesy flavor that is completely unexpected. So I started looking into it from a prepping angle, and what I found was genuinely impressive. 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast delivers 8 grams of complete protein. Complete means all 9 essential amino acids your body cannot produce on its own. That is comparable to a whole egg. It is also loaded with B12, which is one of the nutrients most likely to become deficient during a long-term food storage situation, because B12 is usually found in animal products. Without it, your nervous system and cognitive functions suffer. That matters when you need to think clearly under pressure. Last winter, we had a multi-day power outage. We were eating a lot of rice and canned vegetables, and by day 4, everyone at my table was visibly tired of it. I started adding nutritional yeast to everything, stirred it into soups, sprinkled it over rice, mixed it into whatever we were cooking. The difference in the meals was noticeable immediately. My kids started eating more. They asked for seconds. That alone tells you everything about its value in a real situation. Storage is easy. An airtight mason jar in a cool, dark location keeps it fresh for up to 2 years. No oxygen absorbers required, no special equipment. And because most preppers have genuinely never heard of it, you will never find anyone for it during a shortage. I keep about 5 pounds on hand at a time, which costs roughly $40. For what it delivers nutritionally and culinarily, that is an extraordinary deal. Start small. Buy 1 container and use it in your regular cooking first. You will understand why it belongs in every serious food stockpile. Food number 3, full-fat canned coconut milk. This one hides in the international aisle of almost every grocery store in the country, and almost no preppers are touching it. I am not talking about coconut water or the light beverage varieties. I mean thick, full-fat canned coconut milk, the kind used in Southeast Asian cooking. 1 can contains around 50 grams of healthy fat, and that matters enormously in a survival context that most preppers completely ignore. Here is the nutritional reality of standard prepper food. Rice has essentially 0 fat. Beans have almost none. Those premium freeze-dried meals people spend serious money on? Manufacturers strip out most of the fat to extend shelf life. Fat is not the enemy here. It is fuel. Your body needs fat for sustained energy, for warmth regulation, for absorbing fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, and for basic brain function. When you cut fat from a diet under physical and psychological stress, the consequences compound quickly. I learned this the hard way on a winter camping trip about 3 years ago. We were eating the standard survival food lineup: rice, beans, basic canned goods. By day 3 in the cold, we were sluggish, unfocused, and genuinely miserable. A friend who does long-distance trail hiking had brought a few cans of coconut milk. He heated one up and stirred it into rice. Within an hour, all of us felt noticeably better. The fat content was doing something real at a physiological level. That moment changed how I think about stockpile nutrition permanently. Coconut milk is also incredibly flexible as an ingredient. Stir it into rice to make it creamy and calorie-dense. Add it to soups and stews to increase fat and flavor simultaneously. Pour it straight and drink it as a calorie boost when you need energy fast. And unlike dairy products, it requires no refrigeration and stores well for years. I have cans in my pantry that are 3 years old and still perfectly good. Properly stored cans can maintain quality for up to 5 years. Here's a practical survival math trick. 1 cup of dry rice normally feeds 2 people adequately. Add half a can of coconut milk while cooking, and that same cup of rice feeds 4 people with significantly more calories per serving. At roughly $2 a can, sometimes less at Asian markets, this is one of the best calorie per dollar values in any stockpile. I keep 50 cans organized with oldest in front for rotation, and I use them in regular cooking so nothing ever goes to waste. Food number 4, potato flour. This is the one I said you would wonder why nobody talks about, and the reason nobody talks about it is because it sits in a strange middle ground, too old-fashioned for mainstream attention, too uncommon for most prepper lists. But potato flour has been a foundational food preservation tool across multiple continents, and once you understand what it actually is, you won't understand why it is not on every stockpile list. Potato flour is made from whole dried potatoes that are ground into a fine powder. It is not the same as potato starch, which is just the extracted starch with no other nutrition. Potato flour retains the protein, potassium, fiber, and B vitamins from the whole potato. The caloric density is high. 1 pound of potato flour is roughly equivalent to 5 pounds of fresh potatoes in terms of calories and usable nutrition, and stored properly in sealed containers away from light and moisture, it lasts for years. What makes it practically brilliant for a stockpile is versatility. You can mix it with water and pan fry it into simple potato cakes, real food that satisfies in a way that plain rice does not. You can use it to thicken soups and stews. You can blend it into bread dough to add moisture and nutrition. You can reconstitute it into mashed potatoes with just hot water. For families with children, that last one alone is worth its weight. The price is another advantage. A 5-pound bag typically costs between $8 and $12, depending on the store. For the caloric value and shelf life, that is a strong investment. And because it sits in the baking section rather than the canned goods aisle, it is one of the last things to disappear in a shortage event. I keep about 20 pounds in my stockpile in sealed Mylar bags. The procurement is easy. Most grocery stores carry it, and health food stores almost always have it. This one requires almost no effort to add to your rotation, and the payoff is significant. Food number 5, raw apple cider vinegar. This might be the single most underestimated item on this entire list. Raw apple cider vinegar, the unfiltered kind with the visible sediment at the bottom, has been used for preservation, medicine, and food preparation for thousands of years. And in a survival situation, it pulls triple duty in a way almost nothing else in your stockpile can match. First, the preservation angle. Vinegar is a natural preservative. When fresh food becomes available in a grid-down or disrupted supply situation, whether from a garden, foraging, or barter, vinegar lets you extend that food's usable life significantly through quick pickling. You do not need a pressure canner. You do not need electricity. A jar, some salt, some vinegar, and whatever vegetable you have on hand. That's it. The ability to preserve food on the fly without equipment is an enormous tactical advantage most preppers overlook. Second, the health angle. Raw apple cider vinegar supports digestive function, which becomes critical when you're dramatically changing your diet. Switching from your normal eating habits to a stockpile diet is a shock to the gut. Digestive discomfort, bloating, constipation, these are common complaints during survival food situations, and they compromise your energy and focus. A small daily amount of raw apple cider vinegar helps regulate digestion and maintain gut bacteria balance. Third, it functions as a natural cleaning agent and surface disinfectant when diluted. In a situation where household cleaning supplies are limited, that matters. Shelf life is effectively indefinite. Properly stored vinegar does not expire in any meaningful sense. The acidic environment prevents bacterial growth. I keep several gallons in a dark, cool area of my storage room. Cost per gallon runs between $4 and $8. For something that never expires and serves 3 distinct survival purposes, this one is almost impossible to justify skipping. Food number 6, rolled oats in bulk. Oats are not new to anyone, but the way most people store them and the reasons most people overlook them in favor of rice and wheat means they're seriously underrepresented in the average stockpile. Let me make the case for oats. Specifically, rolled oats have a strong caloric density at around 1,700 calories per pound. They cook in 5 minutes with minimal water. They require no seasoning to be palatable, and they're one of the few stockpile foods that genuinely works for breakfast, which is a meal many preppers fail to plan for adequately. Here's a situation that most prepper meal plans quietly ignore. What are you eating in the morning? Beans and rice again? A freeze-dried scramble that costs $4 a packet? Oats solve that problem cleanly and cheaply. A large container of rolled oats from a warehouse store costs between $8 and $15 and contains enough breakfast servings to last weeks. When you add a bit of honey, some dried fruit, or a spoonful of nut butter, oats become a genuinely satisfying meal that requires almost no preparation. The storage method matters here. Oats left in their original cardboard containers will degrade over time from moisture and pests. Transfer them into food-grade buckets or Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, and they will remain stable for up to 30 years.
I keep about 20 pounds stored this way. The cost was minimal. The value in terms of daily meals, especially for keeping children fed and comfortable in a stressful situation, is enormous. Oats are also valuable for baking, for thickening soups, and for making a simple porridge that works across nearly every dietary need.
Do not overlook them simply because they are familiar. Food number 7, shelf-stable fermented black bean paste. This is the $3 item I mentioned at the start, and I want to be specific about what it is so you can find it. Fermented black bean paste, sometimes labeled as black bean sauce or doubanjiang depending on the variety, sits in the condiment aisle of virtually every Asian grocery store in the country. It costs between $2 and $4, and it is one of the most powerful flavor-multiplying items you can put in a stockpile. Here's the practical value. A single teaspoon of fermented black bean paste transforms a pot of plain rice or a bowl of plain noodles into something with deep, complex, satisfying flavor. It is intensely savory, slightly salty, and rich in umami compounds. A little goes an extraordinarily long way. One small jar contains enough to season dozens of meals, and it keeps for months to years after opening because the fermentation process and salt content protect it from spoilage. Beyond flavor, fermented foods provide probiotic benefit. When your diet shifts suddenly and dramatically, gut health becomes a real concern. Having fermented foods in your stockpile is not just about taste, it is a functional nutrition decision. The fermentation process also means the food is partially pre-digested, which makes the nutrients more bioavailable and easier on the digestive system. Why is this sitting untouched during shortages? Because the vast majority of preppers are not shopping at Asian grocery stores. When panic buying strips the major chain stores bare, the Asian market down the road is fully stocked. I have confirmed this personally on more than one occasion. Add fermented black bean paste, gochujang, miso paste, and similar condiments to your list. They're cheap, they last, and they're available when everything else is gone. This single category of item could be the difference between your family eating with some dignity or grinding through flavorless survival meals for weeks on end. Food number 8, high-quality instant noodle blocks from Asian markets. I'm going to say something that might not fit the hardcore prepper image, and I do not care. Real, quality instant noodle blocks from Asian grocery stores belong in your stockpile, and I'm being very deliberate about the distinction here. I am not talking about the 25-cent ramen packets from a big box store. I am talking about the legitimate noodle blocks that people in Southeast Asia, East Asia, and South Asia actually eat as regular daily food. Brands that have been refined over decades for real taste and nutrition. 2 years ago, I ran a 30-day stockpile test where I actually ate my stored food exclusively for a month to see what worked and what broke down. By day 12, my family was on the edge of revolt. Rice and beans had become a source of genuine daily dread. Then I remembered I had grabbed a case of quality instant noodle blocks from an Asian market. That case became the turning point in the entire test. What makes these different? The noodle quality is genuinely better. Many varieties use wheat-based or egg-based noodles with real protein content. Some packs deliver 8 to 10 grams per serving. But the real advantage is the seasoning. These are not just salt and monosodium glutamate. The flavor packets in quality Asian market noodles contain complex spice blends, dried vegetable pieces, mushroom powder, and genuine soup bases. Flavors like laksa, miso, kimchi, and tom yum represent real culinary traditions. They create an eating experience. Here's the psychological argument that many preppers dismiss and should not. Research on extended emergency situations consistently finds that food monotony contributes to decision fatigue and reduced cognitive performance. In plain terms, boring food makes your thinking worse at exactly the time you need your thinking to be sharpest. Morale is not a luxury, it is a performance factor. 100 noodle blocks cost under $50 total. Each one feeds a person fully in 3 minutes with minimal water. The variety alone is worth it. Shop at your local Asian supermarket, H Mart, 99 Ranch, any comparable store. Look for what the regular shoppers are actually buying. During shortages, those stores remain stocked while chain stores are stripped bare. Food number 9, textured vegetable protein. Most preppers have never heard of this.
Serious long-distance hikers and survivalists have been using it quietly for years. Textured vegetable protein, commonly abbreviated as TVP, is dehydrated soy protein that comes in either small granules or larger chunks. Lightweight, compact, extraordinarily long shelf life, and here's the part that surprises people. When you rehydrate it, it has the texture of cooked ground meat. 1 pound of dry TVP rehydrates into roughly 3 pounds of meat-textured protein.
The protein content itself is remarkable, around 50 grams per cup of dried product. That rivals most animal protein sources. And when stored in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers, TVP can maintain quality for 10 to 15 years. I have not seen any other widely available protein source that matches that combination of density, shelf life, and cost efficiency. The preparation is simple. Soak it in hot water or broth for about 10 minutes. It absorbs the liquid and transforms into something that genuinely resembles ground meat in texture. From there, use it anywhere you would normally use ground beef or turkey. Chili, taco filling, pasta sauce, rice bowls. The flavor takes on whatever seasoning or broth surrounds it, which means it pairs naturally with bouillon cubes, fermented pastes, and the other flavor-forward items on this list. Cost comparison: a 1 pound bag of TVP runs about $6 and produces the equivalent of 3 pounds of ground meat. Freeze-dried meat costs roughly $20 per pouch for a single serving. Keep 20 pounds of TVP in your storage, and you effectively have 60 pounds of ground meat equivalent sitting in a fraction of the space at a fraction of the price. Transfer it from original packaging into Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, seal the bags with an impulse sealer, store in a cool, dark location. Done correctly, powdered whole milk stored this way remains stable for 15 to 20 years. The nutrition is solid across the board. Calcium, protein, vitamin D, and fat-soluble vitamins all present in meaningful quantities. The versatility of powdered milk in a stockpile situation is also substantial. You can reconstitute it for drinking, use it in baking, breads, pancakes, muffins, stir it into coffee, make simple white sauces. With the right cultures, you can even make basic yogurt. These are comfort foods. They're normalcy. In a prolonged disruption, the ability to make a batch of pancakes on a Sunday morning is not trivial. It is a morale anchor. A practical tip for families transitioning to a stockpile diet: begin mixing powdered milk with regular fresh milk in your everyday cooking right now. Use a half-and-half ratio. Your family will barely notice the difference, and when the time comes to use powdered milk exclusively, it will not be an unfamiliar shock. I keep 30 pounds in my stockpile at a cost of around $80. For decades of shelf-stable dairy, that math is hard to argue with. Food number 11, hard winter wheat berries. This is the foundation. If you take prepping seriously at any level beyond the basics, this item belongs in your storage. Hard winter wheat berries are whole, unground wheat kernels, the complete seed exactly as it comes off the plant before any milling or processing. Stored in food-grade 5-gallon buckets with oxygen absorbers, hard winter wheat berries remain viable and nutritious for 30 years or more. Some experts argue the storage life is effectively indefinite under ideal conditions. Why does this matter so much when you could just stockpile bags of flour? Here's the critical difference. Once wheat is milled into flour, the germ and bran are exposed. The natural oils they contain begin oxidizing immediately. Most store-bought flour goes rancid within 6 to 12 months of milling. It has often been sitting in distribution and retail before you even purchase it. The nutritional degradation is significant and ongoing. Whole wheat berries protect all of that nutrition inside the intact seed. When you're ready to use them, you grind them fresh. The result is flour with full vitamin, mineral, and healthy fat content intact. Genuinely superior nutrition to anything you can buy pre-ground at a store. A hand-crank grind mill capable of grinding wheat berries costs approximately $60. One purchase. In a grid-down scenario, you now have the ability to produce fresh flour indefinitely as long as you have wheat. Wheat berries are also flexible beyond flour. You can cook them whole like a hearty grain.
chewy, filling, and nutritious, usable anywhere you would use rice or barley. You can sprout them in just a few days to produce fresh, living greens in a situation where fresh vegetables are unavailable. You can even grow wheatgrass for juicing. The caloric density is around 1,600 calories per pound, making this one of the most efficient calorie storage options available. I keep 200 pounds of hard winter wheat in sealed 5-gallon buckets. The total cost was around $70. That quantity provides enough flour for my family for well over a year of regular baking. While others are scrambling to find flour bags that will go stale within months, you have decades of fresh milled grain waiting in your storage. That asymmetry in cost, in duration, in nutritional quality is exactly the kind of edge that distinguishes a thoughtful stockpile from a reactive one. Here is where we land after going through all 11. The mainstream prepping playbook is public knowledge. Everyone is reading the same guides, following the same advice, and buying the same foods from the same stores. That creates a single point of failure. When a disruption hits, all of those commonly stockpiled foods disappear simultaneously because everyone is reaching for the same things at the same moment. The foods on this list survive that dynamic because they sit outside the conventional prepper mindset. They are cheaper, more nutritious, longer lasting, and more available during actual shortages than the standard options people spend far more money on. What you have now is a framework for thinking differently about food storage. Not just what to buy, but why certain items hold up when others vanish, what nutritional gaps most stockpiles leave open, and how flavor and morale are just as important to long-term survival as raw caloric math. Every single item on this list is something I personally keep in my own storage, not because it is trendy, not because someone told me to, but because I tested these things under real conditions and they held up. If this gave you even 2 or 3 new ideas for your stockpile, that is a genuine win. Hit the like button. It helps more people find this kind of information, and it tells me you want more content like this. And if you are not already following my channel, now is the right time, because next week I am covering 3 survival tools that virtually every prepper thinks are essential, but that are actually near useless in a real collapse situation. That one is going to challenge some assumptions. You do not want to miss it. Stay sharp, stay prepared, and I will see you in the next one.